You know that strange feeling when you're about to face something painful, but deep down, you sense the universe is about to reveal a hard truth? That's exactly how I felt standing at my mother's burial, grief weighing heavy on my heart, yet a calm sense of inevitability washing over me. It had been 7 long years since my sister, Adora, took away the man I was supposed to marry, Darius, my millionaire fiancé, and the man I once thought would define my future. We hadn't seen each other since that day, but when they finally walked into the church, Adora, flaunting her diamond ring and her trademark smug smile, she had no idea who would be standing there to greet her. And when she found out who I had married, the look on her face was unforgettable. My mother was always the center of our family, the one who held everything together. Growing up in a small house outside Boston, she taught me strength, dignity, and self-respect. Even after I moved into my downtown apartment and began working as a marketing executive, I spoke to her almost every day. She was my mentor, my confidant, my biggest supporter. 8 months before her passing, she was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Despite treatments, we knew time was limited. She handled it with incredible grace, worrying more about us than herself. She spent her final weeks surrounded by family, in the same house she had raised us in, and her last words to me were a promise that I would eventually find peace. 6 years before that day, when I was 31, my life seemed almost perfect. I had a solid career, good friends, and a comfortable apartment. But something always felt missing. That changed when I met Darius Rowan at a charity event through my college friend, Alina. Darius was everything people admired: charismatic, successful, confident. At 37, he was already a self-made digital entrepreneur. He had that effortless charm that drew everyone in. Our connection was instant. We both loved art, travel, and setting big goals. After our first date at a waterfront restaurant, I called my mom, thrilled. "I've met someone special," I told her. Our romance moved quickly. Weekend trips to Martha's Vineyard, fancy dinners, symphony nights. It felt like a dream. Darius was attentive, thoughtful, and generous. After 16 months, he proposed to me on a yacht in Boston Harbor with a 6-carat diamond ring. I said yes immediately. My mother was ecstatic and insisted we plan the wedding of our dreams. Then there was my younger sister, Adora, just 2 years behind me. But our relationship had always been complicated. Growing up, we were close, yet there was constant competition. If I had something, she wanted it too. Grades, attention, friends. Still, I chose her as my maid of honor. Mom believed it would bring us closer, and I wanted to believe that too. When Adora met Darius during a family dinner, she showered him with compliments. I noticed how often she touched his arm and laughed at his jokes. But I brushed it off. That was just Adora being Adora. At our engagement party, she helped Mom with decorations, hanging lights and arranging flowers. But throughout the night, I caught her looking at Darius from across the room. Each time I noticed, she quickly smiled and raised her glass. Later, Mom pulled me aside while tidying the kitchen. "Wendy, I noticed how much your sister seems to like Darius," she said gently. "She's just being friendly, Mom," I replied. "Besides, she's dating Edric, that pharmaceutical rep." Mom smiled, but looked unconvinced. "Just be careful, honey. You know how your sister gets when she sees something she wants." I assured her everything was fine. "We're adults now, Mom. She's happy for me." I couldn't have been more wrong. 3 months before the wedding, Darius began to change. He worked late, answered messages at odd hours, and constantly had excuses about international clients. Our weekly date nights turned into cancellations. When we were together, He seemed distracted, always on his phone, barely listening. He even began criticizing things he once loved. My laugh was too loud, my favorite blue dress suddenly washed me out, and even my reading at night annoyed him. Meanwhile, Adora started calling more often, pretending to check on wedding plans, volunteering to handle appointments I couldn't attend. One evening at dinner, Darius barely looked at me. His phone buzzed repeatedly. When I finally asked if something more important was going on, he sighed and said, "Just work stuff." You know how it gets before a launch. A few days later, I found an unfamiliar perfume on his collar. Floral, strong, not mine. He explained it away, saying he'd hugged a potential investor goodbye. I wanted to believe him, but the unease lingered. Mom noticed it too. "You seem distracted," she said over dinner. "Wedding stress?" I smiled weakly. "Just final details, Mom. Everything's fine." But nothing was fine. I tried harder, booked a spa day, cooked his favorite meals, bought new clothes. Yet Darius grew even more distant. Then came the cake tasting he'd been excited about for weeks. That morning, he called, saying he had a sudden meeting and that Odora could go with me instead. Her knowing his preferences better than I did bothered me, but I ignored the thought. The next day, while cleaning his car, I found an earring wedged near the seat, a dangling silver piece with a tiny sapphire. It was Odora's, a gift from our grandmother. When I showed Darius, he didn't flinch. "Your sister must have dropped it when I drove her to the florist last week," he said smoothly. The next day, Odora repeated the same story, word for word. Too perfectly. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling the same question. Was I being paranoid, or was something really happening between them? 3 weeks before the wedding, Darius suggested we postpone. "You've been stressed lately," he said. "Maybe we're rushing." I broke down, begging him to tell me what was wrong. He hugged me but said nothing meaningful. Then one night, I woke at 3 a.m. to an empty bed. From the guest room, I heard whispers. "Not now. She'll hear us. I know. Soon." The next morning, I decided to surprise him with lunch at his office. On my way out, my dad called, worrying about my health. "Make sure that boy's treating you right," he joked. When I arrived, Darius's secretary looked startled. "He's in a meeting," she said quickly. Her nervous tone gave her away. Without another word, I walked past her and opened his office door, and there it was, Darius, my fiancé. They froze when they saw me. Darius straightened, stammering, "This isn't what it looks like." Odora didn't bother lying. "We didn't plan this," she said coldly. "It just happened." "How long?" I asked quietly. "For months," she replied, "since the engagement party." I stood there, numb. The man I trusted and the sister I loved betraying me for months behind my back. Darius's voice was calm, rehearsed. "Sometimes feelings change, Wendy. I was going to tell you after." "After what?" I cut in. "The wedding? The honeymoon?" I dropped the lunch bag and walked out. "You deserve each other," I said, keeping my pride intact as my heart shattered. That night, I collapsed in my apartment, sobbing until I couldn't breathe. My parents rushed over, using their spare key. My mom held me as I cried, while my father paced, furious. Over the next few days, Mom helped cancel the wedding, and Dad handled the finances. I couldn't even face Darius. I left the ring with his doorman. Through friends, I learned the truth. Odora had pursued him deliberately, visiting him alone, sending messages, finding excuses to meet when I worked late. People around us had seen the signs, but stayed silent. That silence cut deep. Mom became my anchor. She cooked for me, listened to me cry, and even tried to get us to reconcile. But every attempt ended in shouting. During one dinner, when I refused to pass her the salt, Adora snapped. "You always got everything first. The grades, the job, the apartment. For once, I got something before you." "He wasn't something to win," I said quietly. "He was the man I loved." Mom's voice shook. "Odora Marie, apologize to your sister." "For what? Being honest? Darius chose me." That was the last time I saw her for years. The stress worsened Dad's heart condition, and Mom aged rapidly trying to keep peace between us. 6 months later, I hit rock bottom. My therapist diagnosed me with depression, and I lost a major client at work after breaking down mid-presentation. When a position opened at our Chicago branch, I applied immediately. I needed distance. Mom helped me pack. "Will you ever forgive your sister?" she asked softly. "I don't know," I said. "Not now. Maybe not ever." "Forgiveness isn't about them deserving it," she replied. "It's about freeing yourself." "I'm freeing myself," I said, "by leaving." She smiled sadly. "Running away isn't healing, sweetheart." "I need space to start healing," I told her, and she understood. Saying goodbye to my parents was harder than I expected. Dad hugged me tight. "Build a life so good they choke on their regret," he whispered. My first weeks in Chicago were lonely. I worked long hours just to avoid the silence at home. Then Mom called one morning. Her voice was hesitant. "Wendy, I'd rather you hear it from me. Odora and Darius got married yesterday." Their photo was everywhere, smiling outside a courthouse, her wearing my engagement ring. That night, I broke down completely. But by morning, I made a choice. This would be the last day they had power over me. She smiled sadly. "Running away isn't healing, sweetheart." "I need space to start healing," I told her, and she understood. Saying goodbye to my parents was harder than I expected. Dad hugged me tight. "Build a life so good they choke on their regret," he whispered. My first weeks in Chicago were lonely. I worked long hours just to avoid the silence at home. Then Mom called one morning. Her voice was hesitant. "Wendy, I'd rather you hear it from me. Odora and Darius got married yesterday." Their photo was everywhere, smiling outside a courthouse, her wearing my engagement ring. That night, I broke down completely. But by morning, I made a choice. This would be the last day they had power over me. I returned the smile. "Have you met my husband yet?" I asked calmly. The realization hit her instantly. And that priceless look on her face, that was the closure I never thought I'd get.